Well, I want to go over something that the Pentagon has actually tested. It's all its weapons programs and found that almost all of them are vulnerable to cyber attacks. And it's not coming from China; it's coming from the Pentagon. So, usually when they admit something, it's probably a lot worse than you think. And it's actually, it really comes as no surprise because if you look at all the standard operating procedure manuals or whatever you want to call out there for maintenance on things and what you're supposed to do and how many people actually do it. Very few people, it seems, perform every aspect of what they're supposed to do in the military, even though the rules are there. But I guess the only bright light to this situation, though, is that people that are enemies of the United States are probably having the same kind of problem because a lot of maintenance in other countries on weapon systems is, highly lacking. But, one potential adversary I could think of that's coming up in the future is China. And, knowing that the type of, expertise they have in electronics and how they're trying to specifically find vulnerabilities in American weapon systems, I have no doubt that this is going to be a major issue. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be an issue on a cargo plane or, is a C-17 or a C-5 Galaxy or C-1. I think a C-130 might be okay. But then again, actually, I've read a few years ago that there was inferior chips in unrelated stories that were being sold to, planes that even C-130s. And there's so much junk coming in that they don't know what the hell they're getting, to tell you the truth. It's a subject I can't really talk about as an expert, but I'm just alerting people to the fact that the Pentagon itself has said that almost all its weapon programs are vulnerable to cyber attacks. They have like outdated software, or they are misconfigured, they're unpatched, they don't have updates on them or whatever. And, that's what they know about. And considering what the expertise of China's, what they're looking to do is find vulnerabilities in, it may even be with the F-117 too. I don't know. They don't tell you what systems are vulnerable. If it's just planes, is it ships, is it, armored APCs, is it weapons systems? They're talking weapons systems. So, weapons programs or weapons systems. That's the word they used. So, I don't know. First thing you would come to mind would be, highly sophisticated jets, like an F-18E or something or whatever. But it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be, the MH-53 heavy attack helicopter. So, I don't know. I don't really know. Or it could be, Stryker APCs. So, it's like this is what they're admitting. And, I guess they're going to have, well, to tell you the truth, obviously I'm of the opinion you got to make sure whatever the hell you got in inventory works well. And, just from what I've always, how much broken shit there was in the military sometimes, I mean, if you take out a simple vehicle, a lot of times there'd be stuff missing and little BS problems with it. It's just how it is. And, you got to have everything prepared before you go to war, because you're not going to be able to do it and fix it, when you got to deploy. I don't know if they're talking about the weapon systems of the M1 Abrams battle tank too. I don't know, but they're openly admitting this, and I actually do know from years ago. I just repeated that. I said this before earlier, just in the same video. Is even the C-130, which I consider about the safest plane around. Even though it's kind of slow with the propellers and all that stuff, the props. It's they shown that it's been getting inferior chips and stuff that might be spiked with bugs or something that's coming from China. They're not supposed to be coming from China, but they're getting stuff from China to actually maintain a lot of our weapons system. And you don't even know who the hell. There's so many people that are foreign nationals that are actually working in a defense department. You don't know what the hell's going on. So, I mean, something as complicated, as an aircraft carrier, you just don't know. You don't know. And I always suspect sometimes it could be almost like you got this big fortress and you find out that it's got a vulnerability. Um, I do understand that there are enemies in the United States that are patiently biding their time till they figure they're strong enough, and at one point in time they're going to strike. So, this is the USS Fort McHenry, amphibious dock landing ship, with the helicopter pads and all that. But, it's like, consider the amount of electronics that we have in our systems. If you look in the civilian world, where the hell do all electronics come from? China. I mean, even if it's labeled USA, it's assembled in the USA, or it's packaged in the USA, or maybe designed in the USA. But basically, almost everything that's electronic is coming from China. So I don't know how well they test all this stuff. And you got to remember, even within the Defense Department, I just said this before, there's a lot of people that are working in the Defense Department that are, basically foreign nationals. I mean, they might not be supposedly in the most key positions, but then again, it's like, I think there's so many security breaches within the defense industry. It's sad. And, this really goes right back to, one thing I'm a proponent of is the Second Amendment. When push comes to shove, the United States will never be a pushover if you have a well-armed population that knows how to use weapons on an individual basis, on an old school, because it's one thing to, put a hurt on the military itself, but it's another thing to actually take over a country and occupy it. I would think, if there ever was a problem in the future whereby, the U.S. military suffered a great blow or anything, it would, if there was any kind of foreign country that came in here and tried to, extract resources, or, maybe not the way they show it in the movies, but just try to take over and, put a boot stamp on people's head, I think they would have a handful with the old school Second Amendment advocates that live in the United States that would, give them a hard time, because all the tech in the world doesn't really mean you can convert people to their way, or means you're going to be their slave either. So, but I just found this highly interesting. I don't know if, it's not that I'm going to, it's a situation I kind of figured was going on for a long time though. And I've seen numerous stories about garbage chips that were going into different things, different weapon systems, different planes, and, suspicion of security breaches, and, plans for, like, even the F-35 being, gigabytes of data being sent to China. They'll have their own version soon enough. They're looking for, actually Taiwan even has a, not China itself, but figure China might copy it. They have a new, I think it's a dual hull. It's a ship that's considered a carrier killer. It's a stealth ship, real fast, dual hull, fires all kinds of missiles, and I don't know what the hell it is exactly, to tell you the truth. I read about it recently, but sometimes maybe the whole battlefield may change, because you got to remember, before World War II, the doctrine was the battleship. The carrier was like, nobody was really thinking about using a carrier. And it turned out, the carrier turned out to be the main doctrine. But it may be something else. I mean, things, it doesn't mean you can't overcome it. I mean, you look at the examples of what happened in World War I with the German U-boats, and also in World War II with the German U-boats early on in the war. Highly successful. One of the things I'm really peeved at, though, is that, for them to actually, the Pentagon to actually admit that and this is a mainstream story now. This is a mainstream story. I'm not going to reference it, but you can look it up about the Pentagon has tested its weapons programs and systems and found that almost all of them are vulnerable to cyber attack. Well, I mean, that doesn't mean the enemy definitely has the ability to do it, but considering the way China's going, that's going to be their main method to exploit their advantage, because they are number one in producing microchips in the world in this type of high-end technology. And I know we got some things in California and Silicon Valley, but it's like, by and large, I think there's a lot of weapons. I've read that a lot of weapon systems and chips have already been spiked with inferior components and bugs and basically malware. So that could happen, could be maybe activated by the enemy or whatever. You don't know. Sometimes I don't like this freaking high tech. I don't like high tech at all. To tell you the truth, I don't. I mean, when it works, great, but you should always have a backup system. And that's one thing I really can't stand about high tech. It's like, if the gun is, laser guided or whatever, there should always be a manual backup system. If it's an auto loader, there should always be a manual backup system. That's kind of not how the United States thinks, but it's how I think. I don't trust a lot of electronic garbage, to tell you the truth. So, actually, if you're very skilled, a lot of times you can hit the target. You can hit the target, and maybe not as good as a computer, but you could still do a pretty damn good job. And I guess that's going to be the one fail-safe for the United States, is that there's a lot of armed Americans that are advocates of the Second Amendment, and that's one reason I don't think the United States ever will fall, for that reason. There's always going to be several million that are going to be very hardcore, that are going to overcome any type of problem the United States has and, save the day. Maybe that's what will happen. But I found this highly interesting, that when the Pentagon admits to something, the problem is a hell of a lot more acute than what they're telling you. And I suspected this for a number of years, and it just makes sense, because crying out loud, even when you go in a motor pool for something, half the shit is broken, Not, that's exaggerating, but it's about how it is. That's about how it is sometimes.